Welcome back, or welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Glicini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode number 24. My guest, Andy Towers. Currently, he is my and the head coach of the Chaos Lacrosse Club in the Premier Lacrosse League, where he was the recipient of the 2019 Coach of the Year during its inaugural season. On top of being a loyal husband and father of 2 kids, Coach Towers owns and runs Lacrosse Draws, a player development company committed to moving the sport of lacrosse forward for boys and girls from the youth to college levels. Prior to the PLL, Andy was a college lacrosse coach for 19 years, competed in both indoor and outdoor pro lacrosse, and was a multiple-time All-American lacrosse player at Brown University, where he resides in their Sports Hall of Fame. Most recently, he was inducted into the U.S. Lacrosse Connecticut Hall of Fame as well. Coach Andy Towers remains an elite motivator, passionate leader, winner, and friend on and off the field. I'm excited for him to share his story and perspective, so let's dive in. Coach, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Glick. That's quite a rundown. I'm humbled by that lead-in. Certainly puts a lot of pressure on me.
No, I appreciate you being here. So across the PLL and our Chaos Lacrosse Club and the sport of lacrosse in general, you're known for your contagious energy. Where would you say that comes from? Have you always had it? And who were some people that helped instill that into you earlier on?
I would say my personality in general, I probably take on a little bit more of my mom's natural personality than my dad. My dad was a little more reserved, a little more in control, so to speak. But my mom is a really high energy woman. She has dementia right now, so she's struggling a little bit in that area. But there's no question that I take on a lot of her positive energy and her enthusiasm for life. And I'm also very, very fortunate to have married very, very well to my wife, Carlene, of almost 20 years, who, again, is a very glass half full person and is somebody that, helps me and our kids and our household see opportunities in everything that we do. And those things together, along with the other blessings that God has given me, certainly makes me feel like I have a lot to appreciate. And I think that's where it all comes from.
I love it. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you found ways to excel at every level. I even left out that you won a few state championships and All-American honors, even as a high schooler. If you were to point to a few character traits or influences toward that consistent success, what would that be?
I think the number one thing that jumps out at me more so than anything else is I've been very, very fortunate to play for great people that have been my coaches ever since I can remember, whether it's been basketball in the wintertime, football when I was a little kid, certainly lacrosse growing up. I played for a Hall of Fame high school coach who had over 400 or 500 wins, Howard Benedict, who's also in the Connecticut U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame. I played for a Hall of Fame basketball coach in Don Usher. I played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches in Pete Lasagna at Brown and Dom Starshi at Brown. I worked for Mike Wohlvogel at Yale, who preceded Andy Shea there. And so, over my sports career and all the sports that I've played, I've really played for excellent leaders. I've played for excellent coaches that, depending upon what the respective landscape was, really prioritized the development of people ahead of the success as a lacrosse player. I grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut, which is a very nice town. It's an affluent town. And our coaches, both Don Usher in the wintertime in basketball and Howard Benedict, but especially Howard Benedict, who was my lacrosse coach, seeing that it was my first sport, they really made a point to knock the silver spoons out of our mouths in this town. And that appreciation for a blue collar mentality and the perpetual reiteration of staying down on the farm. We had a lot of success if you measure success by wins and losses. And it's easy to let a great record get to your head, especially when you have an immature mind like I had all the way up until about last week. And these guys did such a phenomenal job of never letting us be headline readers. And because of that, it really allowed all of the players on our teams to be able to hopefully reach their potential, or at least get close to it, and eliminate intangibles as a reason why we wouldn't have success. And I think that's the first piece to it. The second piece, from playing at the highest level in a professional sport, I've had unbelievable teammates all the way throughout my career. Whether it was in high school where, our team as a 10 sophomores, we started 8 sophomores in the 1985 state championship run, beating, the best Wilton team in the history of Connecticut lacrosse. I was very fortunate that a lot of those guys were my very close friends and lived the right way. We're all competitive about everything. Went on to Brown, where I was also very, very fortunate to be part of a class at Brown that, we probably had 4 or 5 guys that turned down big scholarships at ACC schools to go to Brown. And, so I have to say that in addition to having great coaches that kept us humble and kept us hungry, I was able to play with teammates that would call you out if you coasted, that you wanted to beat in everything all the time, whether it was in practice or outside of practice. Competition was a layer of our friendship that was undeniable and perpetual. And lastly, growing up in a household where my mom was nurturing and certainly big personality, and my dad, while quiet, was unbelievably competitive, and my brother unbelievably competitive, 3.5 years older than me. But my dad was the type of guy that would not let you win in anything. He in fact would go beyond not letting you win. He would let you win the first set of tennis, or let you go up in a set of tennis 5-zip, only come back and beat you 7-5 and sort of heckle you down the stretch when you started to fall apart, and saying things like, oh no, when you'd hit a shot out of bounds. And it just really sort of got you familiar with and comfortable with a hyper competitive environment, and how if you don't keep your poise down the stretch, you can be your worst enemy. And after many years of losing to my brother in everything, and my dad in certain things, and being around competitive teammates that all wanted the same things that I wanted, and playing for Hall of Fame coaches that kept us in check in a wide variety of sports, I was able to have some success along the way.
I love it. Only 2 questions in, and it's all about relationships right now. I'm working on a blog post with One Love Foundation. It's partnered with the PLL, talking about the height of your performance depends on the health of your relationships. I'm excited to get it out, but I mean, your first 2 answers, included your parents, your wife, your coaches, your teammates, your brother, right? They're all the relationships that, whatever quote you want to use, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or birds of a feather, cut from the same cloth. I think I look at my life in a lot of the same regard, and I was just lucky. I've had a lot of them on this podcast, but coaches and individuals who have pushed me to become a better player, of course, but even a better person, mixing that skill with competitiveness, and yet finding a way to win in all aspects, not just on the field. You spent 2 decades as a player, and then over 2 decades as a coach. Could you elaborate on how your experiences as a player either helped or hurt you as a young coach? And then now, are there things that you do or avoid that you did differently when you were first becoming a coach?
Sure. I was lucky to have played lacrosse, in an era where the sport was relatively new. If you didn't play in New England, you didn't play down in Baltimore, across the rest of the United States, we just weren't competing with all of the other great athletes across the country and up into Canada. So to be a good lacrosse player when I played was significantly easier than to be a good lacrosse player these days, when you're competing against so many better athletes and so many more of them. And so many more kids have had the benefit of being able to go through youth league lacrosse and play for 6-7 years before they, are a freshman in high school. And I was fortunate to grow up in a town where my dad helped start the youth lacrosse league with Howard Benedict, my high school lacrosse coach. And our class, the class of 1987 at Buchanan High School, was the first class to start in third grade and go all the way through the full youth program. And it was a major advantage when you got to high school. You just had so many more kids that could catch and throw. And so, it was easier to have success as a player. I think that given that it was easier to have success as a player, I felt that at times, upon reflecting back, that I didn't adequately work as hard as I should have worked while I was in the moment. And people could look at my career and say, hey, you had a good career, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I won some awards, and that's great. But for me to look back and to say with complete honesty that I got every ounce out of myself that I had in me is absolutely not true. And that's a source of perpetual regret for me. And it's something that when I made the transition out of playing lacrosse competitively and became simply a full-time coach, that drove me to not allow others to make that same mistake that I made as a player. And that's my big driving force. When we throw the term success around, Glick, a lot of times people, measure that in wins and losses or awards won or championships won. And when I was a player, that's the way I defined success. If I didn't win, I wasn't successful. And as a young coach, I also defined it that way. But over the course of the last, 5, 6, 7 years, I realized that success is really subjective more than it is absolute. And I've played on teams that have had great records and won championships that now, by my definition, were not successful because we simply didn't become connected and became better as a group than we were as a group of individuals. And I've recently coached teams at this prep school in town where I coach in the spring, where our team is not great, if you measure it in wins and losses. But some of the most successful teams I've ever coached have had seasons that have been 4-9 and 3-10, and we became one unit. We were connected. We became the best version of ourselves. And I know that's somewhat cliche, that's thrown around a lot these days in sports across the board, but it helps define what I think true success is. And that's proactively doing everything that you can do to eliminate focus, effort, toughness as reasons why you wouldn't be successful. And sometimes you can do all of those things and not win a lot of games and not win any championships. And other times you can do none of those things and just win because you just have way more advantages, way more support, way more talent, whatever it may be. But to me, when you win like that without truly coming together and without people truly sacrificing their own personal goals for the success of the team, I just can't find any success in those situations.
I absolutely love the idea of success is subjective, and defining it for yourself in creating Mark Glicini peak performance. I always just say, I'm going to get your best, maybe not the best, but your best in whatever endeavor that you're chasing down. I remember sending you the book, Getting to Us, which by Seth Davis. I absolutely loved it because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's all about getting to that destination.
You gave me that book, and that book was an unbelievable. And I'm a newspaper reader. I'm a website reader. I don't read a lot of books, but I read that book when we went on vacation last winter, and it was incredible because it sort of tells the journey of 9 different approaches, or 9 or 10 different coaches, some of the best coaches in various sports: Mike Krzyzewski, Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney, Jimmy Boeheim, a wide variety of different coaches, all at hyper successful, legendary programs, and they all have a different way of getting to us. And I never thought about things in a way where I was able to completely tie them together under sort of one statement. And the title of that book really helped clarify a lot of things for me. And I've had a lot of ideas and love listening to various coaches speak and various successful people speak about things, because I'm always interested in how you get to, get some groups, how they can come together and some groups can't, and how maybe a team does it every once in a while, but yet there are these programs that seem to do it all the time. And that title of that book and reading that book gave me a sense of clarity that I've never had before. So I owe you a deep debt of gratitude there, Glick.
No, I read it twice in a row. That's how excited I was about it. When you were talking earlier about how you maybe didn't use the word regret, but you wish you pulled a little bit more out of yourself earlier on, and it's made you a better coach. I was watching the Playbook on Netflix, Coach's Rules for Life, and the last coach to speak was Dawn Staley. And as a player in the early 1990s, she missed a game-winning layup at Tennessee. And the quote that she uses as one of her rules for life is, what is delayed is not denied. Right. And that's a scripture verse, but it's also has everything to do with the fuel that she got from missing that layup and not winning a national championship has allowed her to become Team USA's women's coach, running a powerhouse at the University of South Carolina. And it really just sheds light on how one thing that breaks you down can lead to a breakthrough. Another thing that I just want to pull up real quick on, when it comes to strength and conditioning, there's either relative strength or absolute strength. You have Saquon Barkley, who sets every record at Penn State, absolute strength. It doesn't matter his size. He's doing it in power clean here. And then relative strength is your ability to move your own weight, whatever that is. And if you take that into a mindset perspective, I came up with this the other day, and I want to share it with as many people, is everybody throws the terms around out of shape and then in shape, right? Out of shape, I'm getting in shape. And then there's the next stage, there's game shape, right? There's been times where I've been in shape, but not in game shape and lost games or lost a battle on the field. And then I want to take it a step further and say, how about championship shape? Right. So you have people that are out of shape, in shape, game shape, and then championship shape. That shouldn't only be a strength and conditioning thing. It should also be a mindset development. And that's what I thought of when you're using that breakdown in your past. And it's not a breakdown. It's just a relative award that you were given to be an even better coach, which is just so inspiring to hear. You invest so much time with and around and for lacrosse. What would you say it is about lacrosse specifically that keeps you so engaged and enthralled in the sport?
I think that there are so many. I think the foundation of the game is creativity. With that said, I think it also has so many parallels to the sport of basketball and hockey and soccer. And I think that one of the things that I love most about the sport of lacrosse is that it's not a size game. It's at least on the highest level. I believe it's a lateral quickness and explosive game. It's a toughness game, and it's a game that's where the best players are the smartest players. And while it has a tempo that mimics the game of basketball, I think with the ball up in the air and played with the sticks and the foundation of creativity, it really has a place for anyone to be successful, even if they aren't necessarily the quickest or the toughest. If they're really smart, they can play a critical role in a team's success at the highest level. Take a guy like Miles Thompson on our Chaos team, doesn't really move that fast. He's not very quick. He's as tough as you need him to be, but he just is so smart and he's so in control, and he just is, and he plays such a unique style that he's incredibly effective. And then you marry that up with his intangibles and his unselfishness, and he's simply one of the best players in the world because he plays a style that nobody else in the world really plays. And there are some other crease guys that are phenomenal players, obviously, but nobody plays the way that Miles Thompson plays. And you can't play that way unless you're so tough and willing to take the beating that he takes from being on the inside. But you're also so unselfish that you find just as much glory in setting a pick on the secondary slide as you do scoring 8 goals in, a playoff game. That there just are so many factors that have to be aligned for somebody to be as good as he is with the style of play that he plays. And I just find that so attractive about the sport, that essentially anyone can be great at it. And I'm not trying to knock, Miles Thompson. I'm really celebrating Miles Thompson is what I'm doing. But I think that you think of great lacrosse players, great professional lacrosse players, and you think of guys that are lightning quick and super duper fast with unbelievable skill sets that, can do things that nobody else can do. And while he has an unbelievable skill set, what he really has is an unbelievable mind. And he's able to use his respective strengths to dominate the sport at the highest level. And that's in a nutshell an example of why I love being involved with this sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, he was huge for us in the championship series, especially down the stretch. We're dancing around it, but I want to kind of ask you directly. I mean, you competed in the sport of lacrosse when there wasn't so much specialization, and you played offense, you took faceoffs, you were a complete midfielder. Do you think the specialization of different positions is good or bad, necessary or overdone?
I like it. I think it gives more people more of an opportunity to help teams succeed. And I think without it, you would be limiting certain players from being able to play the sport at the highest level. If the sport only rewarded guys that were really quick and really fast and really big and strong, well, there's so many creative minds out there and so many phenomenal players over the years that have given so many people so much joy just in watching their games, that without specialization, I don't think you'd have that. And I think as sports continue to evolve and improve and more people play the sport and it becomes harder and harder to succeed at the highest levels, I'm glad that the sport rewards people with these unique skill sets. And so I'm a huge fan of specialization if, at the highest level. What I don't like is when young kids are pigeonholed into certain specialized positions to the detriment of their development in other areas. I just exchanged emails with this guy about his son, who's a 9th grader in the high school that is in our area and here. And this kid was referred to as a FOGO by his club coach, and the dad used that term. And listen, I've got nothing but love for FOGOs, but this kid is a phenomenal athlete. And he's somebody that could be a high-level Division I college lacrosse player with the potential to play, professionally. And to label this kid as just a face-off specialist at this point when he's a 9th grader, I think is at the height of irresponsibility. And I made that point to his dad saying, listen, just don't refer to him as a FOGO. Don't let him refer to himself as a FOGO. He needs to be a midfielder that can take face-offs. And he can be the best face-off guy in the world, and he can also be the best field player in the world. And, I can go through a list of players that have done both at the highest level, whether they've been face-off and been offensive players, or whether they've been like Jamie Hanford and faced off and played defense, long poles that have faced off. And I just hate to see kids, especially young kids, specialize at the at the advice or the direction of club coaches or people that don't know the sport well enough to encourage these kids to develop as complete players. And if in the end the difference is they don't get offered support in at the school that they want to be offered support to as a field player, and they're only offered as a specialized player, well, when they're an 18-year-old man and older, no problem. I'm good with it there. But I hate to see little kids especially think of themselves as specialists when they aren't. They've got every reason to pursue becoming complete players, and that's the only side of specialization that I don't like.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation about Montessori schools and how like everybody should be able to try different things. And I was talking to Dr. Horn, who's a lead expert on motor skill development. And he was talking to me through the difference between play practice and deliberate practice. And there's this cool little episode on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, and he's talking to the Olympic development trainer of Norway, who in 2018 had the highest medal count at the Olympics. And you're sitting there like, how does something the size of Minnesota beat out the United States, Russia, China, all these like big time countries in the Olympics? And they do not allow their specialization to happen until at least after 12, right? You're not allowed in their constitution to rank, score, or time a 12-year-old or younger. I think that's awesome.
I love it.
And what ends up happening is they make a choice 13, 14, 15, 16 to either go into Olympic development or not. And the conclusion of the story is that 2/3 of those medal count winners were late bloomers, right? So specialization is awesome, but maybe a little later on. And expanding on this a little bit, and even outside of lacrosse, what would you say are separating factors? I mean, you touched upon creativity and some of the intangibles earlier, but what are the separating factors among all athletes as they go from kids to high schoolers to colleges, players? You were a recruiter for a long time. What were you looking for in those student athletes?
I think when you're in the recruiting process, or when I'm evaluating players in general, not just, younger kids, not just prospects, when Coach Panetta and Coach Curtis and I are discussing you guys, we and who we're going to draft and who we want to trade for, and all of those things, I really try to break it down into sort of 4 columns, right? You have an athlete's athleticism, right, which is God-given. Certainly, it can be enhanced through strength and conditioning, sleep, diet, yoga, and that sort of stuff. You can enhance athleticism. You can't drastically change it, in my opinion, but you can enhance it and you can maximize it, right? But it is God-given to some degree. You've got a player's skill set. So a skill set in the sport of lacrosse, to me, is stick work, which is passing and catching, stick handling, which is carrying the ball. You got ground ball play, so picking it up one-handed or two-handed if you're a short stick, knowing what the respective techniques are and when to use them, and shooting. To me, that's a player's skill set. All of those things you can work on individually. You can go out with a bag of balls, have your parents, drop you off at the local school, and you can stay up there for an hour or two and work on those things and become a skilled player. The next one is IQ, sports IQ. And that's knowing what to do based on what the situation is and based on your respective role within that situation, right? So in lacrosse, whether you're on offense or your defense, if you're on offense, is it settled or unsettled? Are you the playmaker? Is the ball on your stick, or are you off ball, right? Or if you're on defense, are you covering the ball? Are you playing off ball? And knowing what to do based on your respective role within the specific situation is your IQ, right? And that can only be practiced in groups. You can't do dodging and defending live speed by yourself at the high school with a bag of balls. You can work on it a little bit, but you can't really get the nuances down, in my opinion. You can't work on 3-on-2s and 5-on-5s. You can't work on unsettled and settled situations by yourself, right? And so IQ development can only come in group settings. And then the last piece are an athlete's intangibles. And intangibles are things that you decide about yourself, Glick, that you want other people to see in you and say about you if asked. And those are decisions, not limitations. How mentally tough do you choose to be, right? How physically durable do you choose to be? How coachable do you choose to be? How good of a teammate do you choose to be, right? How hyper competitive do you choose to be? And those 4 columns, right? Athleticism, skill set, IQ, and intangibles. Those things together make up what I would consider a complete evaluation of a player.
I mean, I love it so much. There's this guy named Donald Dell, University of Virginia law professor, who says to his students in the final lesson, he says, just take these 5 words with you, whether you want to go into law or anything else, but you want to find success in your endeavors. Build relationships and develop trust. And then he goes on and on to say, life in 3 words, opportunities, choices, consequences. And I love how you did talk. You started off with the opposite of what I love to talk about, which is natural ability and God-given talent. But then what's most important, right? That I love what you said about the intangibles of deciding what you want others to say about you, what's your legacy. To me, that's legacy, right? What you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And the only way people are going to see those things in us, Glick, and eventually say those things about us is us stacking data points proving those things. And it goes both ways. If you're somebody that's only team first when you're in the lineup, but you're not when you're not, then you get fairly labeled that way, right? Or if you are, somebody that gets hurt all the time. Now, I'm not talking about a compound femur fracture. I'm talking about a willingness to play through pain. And having the commitment to the team being greater than the commitment to yourself and to your own success. And that's what a mature teammate and athlete does. You got a senior captain in a college sport that is a 3-year starting player and gets beaten out by a freshman recruit that comes in. Do you handle that situation flawlessly? I'm not saying you have to be happy about it. I'm saying you've got to pull it off to your coaches and your teammates that the team's priority is above and beyond your priority of being a game day player for that team. And you use the word trust after I said a few things. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to 100%. Do I trust that you have the athleticism to make the play? Do I trust that you have the skill set to execute the respective decision that you make? Do I trust that you're making a decision that's in the best interest of the team's success, depending upon what the scenario and your role within that? And do I trust that you have the wherewithal and the mental toughness and a willingness to put the team ahead of your own success at all times? Because if I do, I can lose with you and still feel great. When you lose with people that you didn't trust, it's heartbreaking. It's like you lost twice.
We're touching a lot about lacrosse and sport here, but this was cultivated over a lot of years of experience. So I'd like to circle back more specifically to your story and journey and ask you what kind of highlights or hardships played a significant role in your growth, career path, and current mindset and circumstances. Were there any big inflection points that you had to make hard choices that really come to mind?
100%. And it's like stair steps. I was one of those guys that would have success, and then I would follow that with a failure, or at least that's, the term that I would use. And I'd have more success and determined as a failure. I remember distinctly, I played on the 6th grade travel team in New Canaan, on the top team, and I was really happy about it. And I ended up getting cut from the 7th grade travel team. And I had a choice of either quitting and playing baseball or sort of doubling down on myself and betting on myself and working harder. And, back then, parents didn't call the evaluators and say, hey, you cut my Jimmy, so let's have a talk. Or, or you cut my Jimmy, how about a $5,000 donation to the team? And all of a sudden he gets a roster spot, right? They just didn't have that in the 70s and the early 80s. And so I was very fortunate to grow up during that analog generation. And I got cut from the 7th grade travel team and came back and earned a spot on the 8th grade travel team and started on it and was happy about it. We go into the high school and I start on the freshman team, which I was happy about, but 3 of my friends got brought up to the high school varsity as freshmen. Now, I was somebody that matured late. I was 5'5", 108 pounds as a high school freshman. I was 5'8", 115 pounds as a high school sophomore. And while I'm a bigger guy now, I was small for a long time. I didn't really grow until my junior year. And the benefit of that was that I was forced to survive on know-how and an awful lot of grit and competitive spirit. And so I was very fortunate that I didn't grow. I was fortunate that, my friends grew early and a lot of these guys were able to survive on being bigger, stronger, but I could not do that. And so ultimately when I did become, the same size and ultimately bigger than most of my friends, I still had that grit and still had the know-how and still had an appreciation for, competing harder than everybody else as the only possible chance to success or to winning, which was my definition at that point. And then my sophomore year, I had 8 of my friends get brought up to varsity, and I didn't get brought up. I was on JV, and this is at least during preseason. And then just before the first game, the JV scrimmaged the varsity when I was a sophomore, and I faced off for the JV team, and I beat the varsity guy 7 out of 8 face-offs. And just before the first game my sophomore year, I got brought up, and I played second line at midfield as a sophomore. I was so ecstatic to be able to have an opportunity to play on the varsity, not only to be on the team. I was just happy to be on the team, but to be actually play on game day was so inspiring to me. And then I grew 10 inches, and my next year as a high school junior, I was an All-American as a high school junior. And I think only one other guy in the state had ever done that. And so, I was really proud of that. Probably got a little complacent and didn't make All-American my senior year. One of my best friends made it at my position and deserved it. He had a great season. He was a great player. And so was humbled by that, only to try out for the United States U19 team after my senior year in high school and to make that. And I was, one of 2 kids in Connecticut to make that under 19 team back in the day when, if you weren't from Long Island, Maryland, or upstate New York, you didn't know how to play lacrosse, which I'm sure you knew about a little bit being from New Jersey yourself, right? And so then I followed the summer of playing for Team USA with a really awful freshman year at Brown. And then came back sophomore year and set the school record in goals scored, for a season. And then junior year was first team All-American, and then got kicked out of school for a year, which was unbelievably humbling. And probably the best thing that ever happened to me was getting kicked out of school for a year. I needed to get a dose of reality, and that certainly changed the taste in my mouth, so to speak. And then was able to get back into school my senior year at Brown and made first team All-American again. Although I don't think I was as good of a player my senior year at Brown after a year off as I was my junior year before I got kicked out of school. And so sort of every step of the way as a player, I would have success and then I would be humbled, and it just was perpetual. And it now leads me to say that you don't get tougher. You don't get better when you win. You get tougher when you lose, provided that you use it the right way. And I say it all the time in all the player development clinics that I run with boys and girls, from 4th grade girls up to seniors in high school, and it's the same thing. You get tougher when you lose if you use it the right way. And if you double down and bet on yourself, losing is the best thing that can happen to you. And that's why I really love the quote that you mentioned before, which was, "Success delayed is not success denied," or whatever you said.
Yeah. What is delayed is not denied.
I believe that.
No, that was huge. And it gives me and listeners and everybody a kind of a general sense on where your perspective comes from, right? Life is a lot of just perspective building. And I love that you just said that you were fortunate not to grow. You were fortunate to not find success. I mean, that's not heard of. Those words are not said in the same sentence, but your entire story encapsulates a setback being a setup for a comeback, right? Even your junior year season. I want to pull on something that you said inside there, because you have such an effective coaching style. You do such a great job of mixing seriousness with humor. And one of my mentors, Dr. Brasari, says it's so important to parent your kids like a coach, right? And you were saying this when you were a seventh grader, you were lucky to not get bailed out. So I have a question for you in terms of parenting like a coach and helping kids head in the right direction, understanding tough love, embracing what's best for the kid. Would you say that you parent Tyler and James like a coach, or does your parenting style differ from that of your coaching style?
No, I would say that I parent them exactly how I coach, and my wife does as well. You know, we are not looking for any backdoor, easy way out. I get this daily email from this guy. I can't even remember what his name is, but at the bottom of all of his emails, it says discipline is the shortcut, and it's one of the best phrases that I've ever heard. And we talk about it all the time. You know, expect nothing except to have to work hard and earn your opportunity. And there's no bullshit in our family. Yep.
I love that. Discipline is the shortcut. And I just want to, for a young parent or coach who might be listening to this, what's one piece of advice you would give them? Is there anything that you wish you knew 10 to 15 years ago that you do know now?
Do the work. You know, if I had to say one thing to a parent, my wife and I talk about it all the time, and I'm fortunate to have an unbelievable leader in my house with my wife, and it's do the work. You know, and what I mean by that is, it's so easy to baby your kid. It's so easy to cave into their request. It's so easy if you're running a drill in lacrosse and a kid does it the wrong way to just not say anything. It's exhausting to speak up and redirect a kid on the field. It's just like it's exhausting to teach your kid why you don't play with matches and why you don't just run out in the middle of the street. It's so much easier to just bag it and blow it off. And when you do that, all you do is hurt the kid. And eventually what happens is these kids grow up into adults. And when they look back, they're going to remember the people that did the work for them. My high school coach, Coach Benedict, I just spoke to him yesterday, as a matter of fact, but he treated everybody differently. And I was very cocky, not arrogant, but cocky. And I'm sure a lot of it was, a little bit of insecurity because I wasn't physically mature like everybody else. And he would just destroy me all the time, constantly tell me how I was going to get beat out and how, this kid with the sprained ankle that, couldn't even walk straight, when as soon as he was healthy, I was out of a job. And he was just perpetually thinking, perpetually killing me with this stuff. And with my other friends, they could do whatever they want. And he's the reason why I was able to have so much success, because I really responded to coaches that would sort of challenge me that way. Guys that, look the other way or let me do what I want. I didn't work hard for them. And really what I was doing was I wasn't working hard for myself in those situations. And I didn't look at it at the time like that. But my advice would be do the work as a parent, because what's going to happen is you're going to raise humble, appreciative, understated, unentitled kids, ideally, but the work is never done. Do the work and realize that the work is never done.
Going right off that, well put, Coach. The work is never done. As the years go on, and regardless of the endeavor, we all need to keep adding logs to the fire. So I want to ask you, even though you've accomplished so much in sport as an athlete, as a coach in lacrosse, what are some of your top motivating factors now or goals at this stage of your career?
You're not going to live forever. And I lived a very, very carefree life, growing up and through my 20s. And, I didn't really have an adequate appreciation for, the amount of work it takes to be successful, and how, you can live a certain way and then you can change your mind and be like, you know what, now I'm going to take things seriously. And what I realized over time, and I said this talking to a guy, a few months back, which is, just because you turn the corner and you're ready to take something seriously, if you've strung together, years and years of not taking things seriously, don't expect the world to all of a sudden take you seriously because now you're saying, okay, now I'm going to be serious. It doesn't work like that. You've got to show people through consistency in the way that you act, who you are, and opinions that people have of you are being perpetually moved in one direction or the other. And while no one's perfect, you've got to be conscious that consistency is the ultimate layer of toughness. And ultimately, the best players are the ones that are the most consistent, right? And so at 52 years old, I don't think that there's I'd like to think that I don't take a moment off, and I do. There are times when I'm lazy and don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to handle my business affairs, or I don't feel like going to work, or whatever it may be, or but I really try to pride myself on not taking a moment off and being appreciative for every opportunity. I say it to my wife all the time, like, I think about when I don't want to go to work, how lucky I would feel if I was in jail and, let's just say, unfairly accused of a crime, and I was in jail. You think of those guys would die to go coach lacrosse for 5 hours in a row for no money, right? And I'm doing it and getting paid for it. And I just feel like at 52 years old, I just want to be constantly aware of how lucky I am to be reasonably healthy and to be able to get to do something I love every day, even though some days I don't feel that way. And so I strive to be consistent. That's what I try to do.
Well, I mean, Coach, you are human, and I love that you gave us there, because my favorite thing in the world is the word momentum. I believe that we drastically overestimate what we can do in a day, but drastically underestimate what we can do in months and years. Just that your story is a perfect example of being a small individual who became much bigger and did great things. And I love the constant awareness, right? I think awareness, knowing where you've been, where you are, where you're going. And that's why I asked you the question, just remaining consistent. You said consistency is the ultimate layer of toughness. I'm going to use that. I love that. And constantly staying gracious and kindness and gratitude costing nothing. I think that's really, really powerful. One of the things I want to ask you in terms of staying consistently, to stay on top of your game, to remain sharp, or to pick yourself up after a bad stretch or a loss. Are there any strategies or outlets you do in order to reset, or in order to get yourself back to where you want to after a couple days or a week not feeling yourself?
Well, I try to have a perpetual appreciation for the opportunities that are in front of me. I'll be the first one to say, don't be a pussy, get up, get it done, do what you got to do, man up. And again, I'm very, very fortunate to have a wife that, if I'm soft, she will drop the hammer and not allow not only me, but her kids, our kids. And, you can't say that if you don't walk the walk yourself. And she walks the walk. and it's inspiring, and it holds you accountable. And you know what? She knows you can't say it unless you're doing it yourself. And that's inspiring to do it yourself, because I always want to be able to say it. I want to tell somebody, you got to suck it up. I want to be able to tell my kids, with credibility, suck it up, stop feeling sorry for yourself, get it done, find a way to get it done. And I can't say that unless I am doing that above and beyond everybody else, at least in my eyes.
I love that. Behind every strong man is an even stronger woman. Success leaves clues, coach. And one of the keys to mental performance training is understanding that. Are there any stories, quotes, inspirational books, or motivational resources that you turn to help you as a coach, or did help yourself out as an athlete, or just every day to stay inspired and motivated?
I think that for me, I have an inherent appreciation for how I grew up. I grew up, was very fortunate to grow up in a nice town and had a lot of resources at my disposal, and was fortunate to play for coaches along the way that we referenced in the beginning of the cast that would sort of knock that silver spoon out of your mouth. And going into coaching and playing for great coaches, moving out of Fairfield County for 10 years, and to come back, I'm perpetually aware of making sure, hopefully, that nothing that I do has an ounce of entitlement in it. I don't think that I detest anything more than entitlement, except for maybe snobbery, and I'm not sure they're not synonymous to some degree, but I just don't have any tolerance for exclusiveness, entitlement, snobbery. I just detest those things. And for me, I want to make sure that everything that I do models the exact opposite of those things.
Love it. We're heading into the fourth quarter here and overtime, so I appreciate it. I've been in many locker rooms, coach, where you've energized our group of men with enthusiasm and your words. Are there any main messages you find yourself repeating to your athletes, regardless of their age, like key elements that you tend to stress?
I think when I speak to anyone, I speak from my heart, and I feel like, as I continue to speak about the opportunity at hand, the chances of having success in pursuit of that opportunity inspires me and gets me excited, and it's genuine. I don't aspire to fire you guys up. I mean, I know at times I have fired you up, and certainly I want you guys flying high for the games, but I don't plan out what I say. What I speak about is what the task at hand is and what we can do from an operational standpoint to maximize our chances of getting the desired result, but never losing sight of the fact that getting the desired result does not define success. Success is defined as doing everything that you can do in pursuit of the desired result. And if you don't get the desired result, you can still have success. And I think that mindset takes the pressure off of people, of knowing that you can have success without winning, and you can be successful without winning. And that hopefully allows people to play loose and to have fun. And if you play loose and you're having fun, chances are you're going to play your best. And if your best is good enough to win, great. But the wins or the losses will be a sort of a derivative of that approach. But again, it's subjective. And I just want every group that I'm affiliated with to play loose and to have fun. And ideally that leads to the best performance possible.
embracing the process, surrendering the outcome. Let's play a little loose here. I want to go into a more easygoing, fun speed round of questions before one last serious one. Are you
Great.
ready for that?
I am always ready, Greg.
What's your favorite movie?
Hooper, which was a movie about a stuntman in 1979. The stuntman was Burt Reynolds, who was a little bit before your time, but he was a STUD stud in the 70s and 80s. And if you want to do yourself a favor, watch the movie Hooper, Sonny Hooper.
What's your favorite sport besides lacrosse?
Football.
What's your favorite holiday?
4th of July.
Who's the funniest in your immediate family?
My dog, Frank.
Rocks, paper, or scissors, and why?
Scissors, because I think everybody naturally does rock. And I think the people that are trying to outthink the game anticipate rock and throw paper. And that's why I throw scissors.
Great. What are you most grateful for, Coach?
Great family, great opportunity to be able to go out and do the things that I want to do, to be able to be healthy, particularly as I get older, and to have a family that supports me 100%, whether I succeed or whether I fail.
So awesome. That ends the speed round. So last question I ask every one of my guests.
Yep.
How do you define greatness? When you reflect on those that are chasing or have attained greatness, in your opinion, what do they have in common? What is greatness in your eyes?
Greatness to me is somebody that makes the people that are depending on them better across the board, regardless of their level of strengths and weaknesses. That's what defines greatness. A great player makes his teammates better. A great spouse makes his spouse and his family better. To me, greatness is somebody that makes the people around him better.
Started with relationships and ended with relationships. Coach, I'm grateful for ours. You definitely know how to make our squad on Chaos better. So I would say on a microcosm level, there's greatness right there. But I really appreciate your time. I appreciate our relationship, and I look forward to the future together.
Listen, Glick, I can't overstate. I've told you many times, how I feel about you. I simply love you. I love your approach to things. There is nobody that I trust more on and off the field to get it done. And I'll tell you this, I could lose with you all day long and feel great about myself. And I can't give you a bigger compliment than that.
You're the man, Coach. Thank you so much.
All right, Glick. Have a great New Year, brother. Stay in touch. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.